So what was actually accomplished during the IRS hearings yesterday? And what's next in terms of the investigation into illegal behavior at the agency? Joining me now, Congressman Jim McDermott, who also sits on the House Ways and Means Committee. He took in yesterday's hearings. Congressman, it's good to see you.
Good to be here.
What would you say came out of the hearings yesterday?
Well, I think the fundamental story came out that a few members of the agency used some inappropriate criteria to select out people's applications for tax exemptions. It didn't find anything that anybody had done wrong. The IG's report didn't say that there was any partisanship or that there was any legal wrongdoing or anything like that. It simply was that the job that the IRS has to do, that is, if somebody asks for a tax exemption, it's their job to decide whether or not they're entitled to it. Now, the way they did it.
What about the fact that they've got roughly 70,000 of these apparently to sift through?
Well, that's what really gummed up the works. Ordinarily, they get about a quarter of what they got this year, but after the Citizen United lawsuit in 2010, a large number of corporations and groups suddenly came running in wanting a tax exemption so that they could use their money to use it in the political process. And the IRS said, whoa, wait a minute here. But they were really overwhelmed, and they made some bad choices. There's no question they made some bad choices.
One of our producers who was keeping an eye on the hearing yesterday noted that at one point there was almost a 10-minute stretch where there was actually not a question asked. There seemed to be a lot of speechifying, as I call it, a lot of grandstanding yesterday. How productive was the exercise itself?
It was not. Let me tell you, Melvin, where this is going. They are going to try and tie this stuff in the Internal Revenue Service to the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. The real target for the Republicans is stopping the implementation of the president's Obamacare. And they are going to use it because the IRS is the one that's going to determine whether or not you're entitled to a subsidy or whether a small business is entitled or whatever. They are going to do the financial things. And what you're seeing now is an attempt to tie that to the implementation of the Obamacare to make everybody say, oh, this is awful. It is not going to happen. It's driving the Republicans nuts because they can't stop the president's plan for moving forward.
On health care specifically.
On health care.
I want to call your attention to something before I let you get out of here. In today's Wall Street Journal conservative columnist Peggy Noonan, she writes, quote, "We are in the midst of the worst Washington scandal since Watergate. The reputation of the Obama White House has, among conservatives, gone from sketchy to sinister, and among liberals, from unsatisfying to dangerous." How damaging is this scandal potentially for the president and that agenda you just mentioned?
Well, he has to deal with it promptly, and he's done that. He fired 2 people. He's moved in and said, this is outrageous. I'm going to get rid of people who do that, and moved on. It is not like a burglary that was committed by the Nixon White House and then was covered up. It has no comparison whatsoever. Most people don't remember the facts, but the facts are not the same today as they were 40 years ago.
Congressman McDermott, thank you, sir. Do appreciate your time on this Saturday.
You're welcome.
The White House is amping up its efforts to get out ahead of the trio of trouble that's plagued